I just watched Jay Shetty break down what happiness really is in his conversation with Stephen Bartlett, and I had to share my thoughts. Jay said something that really hit home. He said, happiness isn't this abstract, feel good state you chase, it's built through daily habits and a deeper purpose. That's a game changer, right? But there's so much more to this concept. So let's listen and unpack it together. Let's dive in. Don't forget to subscribe.
Kind of simplify what happiness is. And I sit here with my guests, and Mo Gadat was great at that as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He was unbelievable
Yeah.
at kind of the concept of happiness. What are the kind of simple fundamentals that Jay Shetty requires in his life to live a happy life? I'm going to use the word happy. I know it's a shitty word in many respects, but I just want to use that as the word.
Yeah, I'd say that I look at happiness as daily habits and then deeper purpose. So there's things you can do daily that keep that happiness kind of moving and feel it's growing. And then there's almost the objective, the compass, the reason why you live and why you exist. And for me, it's been really clear that finding your passion and using it in the service of others is what creates the greatest, deepest happiness. When you find what you love, what you excel at, what you're brilliant at, and then you can actually use that to improve people's lives. And you can use that skill, that passion, that energy to make a difference in someone's life. There is no better feeling than that. And what I find is I meet a lot of people who've mastered their passion, but not for service. They mastered it for business. They mastered it for money. They mastered it for success. And they have all of that, but they haven't got the service element in their life. They don't understand how to use their passion for a purpose. And so they feel unequipped. And then I know lots of people who are trying to serve, who are trying to make a difference, who are trying to do charity work. They're trying to do all this good work. And they feel good about it, but they still don't feel fulfilled because they're missing what is my special role? Like, what's my position? What's my offering in this space? You kind of get lost after a while. And so to me, happiness is where both come together, where it's like, I know what I love and what makes me happy. And when I do that for others to improve their lives, it makes them happy. So if you can do what makes you happy and do it for others and it makes them happy, that's going to give you happiness. And I have tested that principle time and time again with clients, with friends, with family, with myself. And I've seen it to be true again and again and again. But that's that bigger happiness piece. Let's go to the daily habits, like the daily stuff. And I want to try and avoid the stuff that I think people have heard and people have probably come across before in many different places. Maybe I've spoken about them, maybe other people have. But one of the biggest ones for me is I read a book a few years ago about flow state. And that book really transformed how I felt about things. And it talks about how being in flow is the intersection where your skills and your challenge match. So if your skills are higher than your challenge, you'll feel bored, lethargic, and maybe feel stuck. But if your challenge is greater than your skills, you feel overwhelmed, potentially depressed, and disconnected and disappointed. So most of us are living in one of those discrepancies. And I find on a daily basis, I'm playing around with that equation for happiness. Because that flow state of when you know you have a skill and your challenge is met, and even if you lose, you still get such a joy out of it because you know that you're still working in the right direction. And I think that is an underplayed part of happiness because it doesn't sound like something predictable or obvious, because people go, well, that's achievement, that's ambition. It's actually not. It's just saying, for most people, it's either or. Their challenges are greater than their skill, or their skill is greater than their challenge. So I would ask everyone to say, look at your life. Do you need to improve your skills, or do you need to broaden your challenge? Is this a year of expanding your challenges, or is this a year of broadening your skills? And I promise you, if you start with that, you're going to get so busy and active changing one of those, the happiness is going to naturally flow. This comes into a little model I created of creating happiness for my year. And that one sits in one of them. So I'll explain which one it's in. I believe that to create happiness day to day in 1 year, in 1 month, in a week, you have to have 3 things. You have to learn something every year. You have to launch something every year. And you have to love something every year. And that's how I've lived for the last 3 to 5 years. Every year I'm learning something, every year I'm launching something, and every year I'm loving something. And I'll give you an example. So when I talk about flow state, that comes into the idea of raising your challenge is like launching something. The reason why launching something creates happiness is because it creates a feeling of nervousness. It creates a feeling of butterflies. It creates a feeling of excitement. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. We all need a feeling of surprise in life. We all need that feeling of, I don't know. The sense of the unknown can actually cause happiness. And so launching something is such a powerful way. And I think too many people will think for 5 years and think for 10 years and maybe launch one thing in their whole life. And me and you have both, I mean, I'd love to, I can't wait to interview on my podcast, but I have launched so much stuff that has failed.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, but that launch creates so much joy. It creates so much happiness. So launch something, and we can dive into that. Then there's learn something, which is what we just talked about, learning a skill. So that's the idea of creating your flow state by saying, what skill do I want to learn? And every year I pick a skill. And it's usually based on what I want to launch the next year. So I'll go, okay, I need to learn podcasting. So 2018, I studied podcasting. 2019, we launched the podcast. So what you learn turns in what you launch, and what you launch turns into what you love. And what we try and do is we try and do it the other way around. We try and love something before we learn and launch it. It doesn't make sense. You've got to learn about something first, and then you can fall in love with it. You can't love something and then learn about it. You can, but it doesn't always work that way. So I try and plan my years out in that way. I go, what am I going to learn? What am I going to launch? And what am I going to love? So yeah, I think that's how I try and create happiness on a daily, weekly, monthly basis without diving into things like gratitude and meditation, which are huge parts of my daily happiness. But I think those are ideas that are out there and that we've talked about before.
Okay. Learn, launch, love. That's serious wisdom. I actually like that a lot. He talks about this happiness as being this combination of two things, where it's your passion and how you use your passion to serve others. And when those two things align, that's when you experience true fulfillment. Let's be real for a second, though. How many of us get stuck on one side or the other? You've either got people grinding away at their passion, but feeling empty because there's no purpose behind it. Or you have people who are trying to serve, but they don't know how to use their unique gifts. That actually hit very deep. And then there's this whole idea of flow state. I loved how he explained it, is finding that balance between your skills and your challenges. And if your challenge is too big, you get overwhelmed and burned out. But if it's too small, you get bored and you feel stuck. So it's about constantly asking yourself, is this a year where I need to improve my skills, or do I need to take on bigger challenges? How many of us actually sit down and reflect on that? And I like the idea that every year you got to learn something, because it's like almost like the theme of the year. And then because you learn it, you can't just sit with it. You got to launch it. And then you learn to love that. And that process creates a certain momentum. It keeps you engaged and excited about life. Think about it. How often do we put off launching something out of fear? We wait years, sometimes a lifetime, instead of diving in and learning as we go. But that excitement, that nervousness, which is the unknown, it's part of what makes us feel alive. Happiness is really recognizing who you are, your unique mission, and actualizing it. And it doesn't necessarily mean doing something in a big way, but living aligned to who you truly are and doing that on a daily basis. It's not about success or accomplishment. It's about really being who you are and living your life in that direction. So here's my challenge to you. What's one thing you need to learn and then launch and then love this year? Think about it. Maybe it's time to level up your skills, take on this bold challenge, or finally bring that idea that you've been sitting on. Just bring it to life. So drop a comment, let me know your next step. And if this message resonates, share it with someone who needs that reminder. We all need reminders of what's going to actualize our happiness.